Alright, so for the gear and skills and cube and all that good stuff, this is a Legacy of Nightmares build for current season 17. So every ancient piece helps a bunch, 750% damage, 4% reduction per piece, but that's all additive on top of itself, so don't think that if you're missing one ancient, you're missing a 750% damage boost. You are missing a good chunk of damage from it, but it's not a literal 750%. Unless you have no ancients and you put one on, then it is. Additive bonuses are weird like that, but don't think too much about it. Point is, I'm going to go through the pieces that you absolutely want to have no matter what, so that even if it's not ancient, you want to find a way to squeeze it in there, at least until you get ancient. Your end result should be to have everything ancient, obviously. So I'm just going to start off at the top and go down the gear. I'm going to mention some stuff with the cube, but with the cube, this slot right here, the armor slot, is going to be your filler. Whatever is really important for the build to work that you either don't have or you don't have ancient, use this to get it going. Once you have all the core pieces of the gear, even if they're badly rolled, but you have them and they're ancient, then you worry about throwing Nemesis bracers in the cube, because who doesn't love Nemesis braces? They're so fun, but they are in no way mandatory for the build. So that being said, we're going to start with the helm, the Orc's Crown. I highly recommend getting one of these. It is not at all important. If you don't have one at all, that's fine. But if you do have one but it's not ancient, I would say throw it in the cube, get the full bonus for it. This way, when we put a diamond in the helm, it's going to be a huge cooldown reduction for Land of the Dead, and it does also affect Bone Armor and Blood Rush, which is nice. It's just nice. Not at all important, though. One of the more beneficial, not important pieces, though, if that makes any sense. Shoulders. I'm using these things because Skeletal Mage gives when Skeletal Mages expire, they leave a corpse behind. I cannot emphasize how unimportant this item is. The absolute least important item in the entire build. That's still technically part of the build. Next to the amulet. No, shoulders. So whatever ancient shoulders you have, throw them on. If possible, roll some cooldown on them. If not, whatever, that's fine. It really doesn't matter as long as they're ancient. Oh, and the helm also infit critical chance. And if you're using a Leorix, the orange text is really nice. Mine's terrible, it's missing vitality, but the build doesn't care. I just get one shot by everything, but that's fine because we use Final Service cheat death passive, so I just end up not dying. It's really nice. We'll go into that more later, but shoulders, any ancient you want. The amulet is... This is not actually the build. The build does not need Haunt of Exo. I promise this is not helping at all. But any ancient amulet you have with good rolls, crit, dex from another character with double crit on it, that's fine too. Really just get your chunk of your crit chance and crit damage on this amulet and let it be ancient. Like, just the best ancient amulet you find, throw in here. If you really want to be picky, a Wisdom of Kalan would be your go-to ammy. It is tricky to get a good ancient one of those, but that would be your go-to best in slot ideal, because it gives you 5 more stacks of bone armor, which is just nice for the little bit of extra damage reduction you get. It's not a huge difference because we're doing Gold Wrap Avarice, but yeah, that's the ammy slot. The chest. This thing, I cannot stress enough how huge this chest piece is. Everything about the build, how the build works, how it runs, how it snowballs, and how it becomes just a steamrolling machine after just a few kills is because of this chest. This chest over the helm for sure. There's a few items in the build that are technically more important, but I would consider... not those, sorry. I would consider this to be one of the main pieces you go for. And this could be where the cube comes in. If you've got to throw it in the cube because you don't have an ancient one, that's fine. But I would really say try to shoot for this to be one of your main pieces to go for before you even really put the build together and try testing it out. If you're just trying to throw some items on, lower it to a lower torment and see how the build feels. Do not do that without this chest piece. It does not feel the same. This chest piece is amazing. The way it works is that whenever Devour's consuming stuff, which is always because of the way the build works, it's doing double, well, up to double the amount, both health and essence. Huge! And when it goes over your max, which is every time it does it, because it's huge, it will give it to you over 3 seconds. So when you finish killing a pack, as the last enemy dies, or just the last enemy that you're trying to kill, your essence is full, burn it on a free set of mages, and it'll just fill right back up because of that chest. And then this way, you have those extra mages to kill stuff as you're running towards the next enemy or whatever you're trying to kill, and you still have a full essence pool to get a fresh set. Huge. I'm going to stop harping over that though. We're going to go on to the bracers. These Tasker and Theos that I'm using are absolute shit. You do want Tasker and Theos because it's attack speed of your pets. It says it right there. Nothing complicated about it. But if this is the only piece of the gear that you're missing, it's not super important. If you're already using your cube slot for another piece of gear that's more important, and you just can't fit Taskers in until you get a good pair or get an ancient pair, don't worry that much about it. You'll have so many mages, and with the Bone Spike and Bone Armor proccing Crispins, we'll go into that with the skills, they'll be one-shotting stuff most of the time, or you'll pick a target, cast Bone Spikes on it, and then it'll get one-shot because of the way it interacts with the Crispins. But so these aren't super important, really just your best roll bracers if needed, but you do want to try and go for these later down the line. I'll try and put like an overall priority after I go through all the pieces. Reaper's Reps, 100%, definitely need them. You're never searching for health globes, but they're magically finding their way towards you constantly, so you don't really notice how huge it is, but it's huge. If you don't have an ancient version of it, use them anyway. Just craft a couple at the bench. If none of them craft ancient and you run out of materials, that's fine, whatever, just throw it on. You can sacrifice this slot not being ancient for the sake of just having some good Reaper's Reps. Mine are missing Vitality, and I had to roll intelligence on them. I don't know how that happened. But these are not terrible, but they could be a little more comfortable. Fist damage to minimum. But you get the point. It's the orange text, the health globes restoring resource. That's not that important anyway. If it's the bare minimum, 25%, it's still fine. Don't even think, oh man, the orange text is low. Don't care. 25% is huge. That's all you need. The belt is gold rep. This is mandatory, sadly. Any skeleton mage build for necromancer is extremely squishy. There are slow-paced versions of it where you run Dante's Binding and you cast your curses, and that definitely helps a ton, but long story short, this belt mixed with the Boon of the Hoarder gem, the legendary gem that's in this amulet, and this ring is what makes this build just ridiculous, and you can tank molten explosions from enemies, grotesques popping, you don't care. You're invincible after you pick up a couple stacks of gold. And if your pet running around picks them up too, that also counts. So that's gold rep. You really do want it. If you're testing it out, the feel for the build, to see if you like it, this isn't important as long as you're doing a low enough torment where you're tanky. But realistically, you do want it before you get rolling in T16s. We're going to go to the jewelry, Circle of Julian's Love, Avarice Band, and the Crispins. So as with any other jewelry setup on a build, use the best two you have rolled, put the worst one in the cube. For the sake of a Legacy of Nightmares build, that pretty much means use whichever two you have ancient versions of and put the other one in the cube. The orange text on Circle is very helpful and important, but it's not as important as the orange text on the Crisbins, but neither of them are 100% important for the build to function. They both pretty much just equate to more damage. The Crisbins being the number one biggest source of damage out of them, Circle being number 2. You see mine's not even perfect, it ranges from 2 to 4, I have a 3. If you have a orange text of 4 seconds on a Circle, or an orange text of 100% on a Crisbins, but the ring is not ancient, and then you have an ancient version of the ring that has the lowest possible orange text for whichever one, use the ancient version anyway. It will still equate out to be more damage because of the way ancients work, and you're getting a nice little 4% damage reduction, which helps you in between gold wrap, making you invincible. You probably started to notice I have some cooldown, like I have cooldown on the gloves. I have it on one of the rings, not the other, because this thing just sucks so much. And then we're also getting cooldown on the offhand and the weapon. None of that is mandatory. Don't feel pressed that you need to get cooldown. I had rolled it for the Greater Rift version of the build, which is Simulacrum, and it's a whole different thing. Don't feel pressured to get cooldown. I would recommend getting it where you can, if you have the chance. It is really nice and very helpful, but it is zero mandatory. Zero. Pants. Swampland Waders. Nothing new or surprising there. There are some cool necro pants that you can try to fit into the mix, but they would all involve adjusting your skills one way or another. Like, for example, Golem Skin Breachers would probably be the first go-to I would think of, and then you would have to switch Land of the Dead for Command Golem, or I guess you could drop Bone Spikes, but you don't want to do any of that. You would be able to cast Command Golem instead of using Bone Spikes, as in click this and stun the enemy to proc Crisbins, but it's really just all a lot of headache. Losing Land of the Dead loses so much snowball potential to get the build rolling. I don't recommend any of that, and Swamplands are just the best fit for when you don't want the orange text of any of your options. So none of the necro-specific Legos really help us. So then what's the next best option? Swamplands for the physical damage. This spot does not matter. Any ancient pants. Put any ancient pants you have on. It's fine. You probably won't even feel it. It's fine. If you really want to, be a bowler, get yourself some ancient Swamplands. If you're not familiar, they're ancient witch doctor pants. So you can make a witch doctor alt, get a power level to 70, go back to your main, do your farming, get blood shards, and then spend all the blood shards on pants on your witch doctor, and just eventually get a pair. You could use bounty mats to reroll a non-ancient pair in the cube, however route you want to get them ancient. But again, absolute least important thing in the build. The only thing that's less important than the pants would be probably these damn shoulders or the amulet. So all those are just slots you can use whatever ancient you want in. The boots, I talked about the Avarice Band, right? I didn't go into detail with the Avarice Band, but I'm gonna go into detail with that with the skills. In short, every time you pick up gold, whatever, it increases your gold and health pickup radius, but the reason that's so good is gonna make more sense in it when I go over the skills. In addition to the obvious gold wrap Boon of the Hoarder combo. Steward's Greaves, I really, really recommend these, whether they're in the cube or on equipped, based on if you have an ancient version or not. The build just won't feel the same. These boots and this chest, the build will not feel the same without having both of those. That's really all we need to say on there. Get them. Don't worry about the orange text roll, but just get the darn things. If you can't get them ancient, throw them in a cube. If you can get them ancient, awesome. Throw them on. Get them. Offhand. Any necro offhand you get, use. That's ancient. Sorry. Use it. It does not matter which. Like, most other necro builds, it really does not matter which one. If the secondary stat on it can be plus maximum essence, that's awesome, and the plus damage bonus on it is also important, obviously, so it's kind of, there's some math behind which one's better, but usually the plus damage bonus roll is going to give you more than the secondary res, but if they're close and you're comparing two items, the secondary max essence is going to give you more, so I mean, mess with it however you want, but the point is just get an Ancient offhand. Make sure you got crit chance on it. It doesn't need to be the perfect 10, but make sure it has a crit chance roll on it. And try to squeeze cooldown on it if you can, but that's not mandatory in any way. But this is a really good spot to get cooldown. If you're stuck picking between whether you want crit chance or cooldown or max essence, the priority would definitely be get crit chance, get maximum essence, worry about cooldown last, and then I believe it can roll skeletal mage damage, so then that would be, that's actually more important than cooldown, but for what the way the build's performing for me, I don't need any more damage on my mages, so I don't know. Scythe of the Cycle. This is one of the main reasons that the mages deal so much damage. You have to keep bone armor up, but every time you cast Skeletal Mage, you lose 4 seconds off of your 60-second bone armor duration. As long as you're casting bone armor consistently when it comes off of cooldown and you're hitting an enemy with it, this will never be an issue no matter how much you're spamming. There's a part in the actual playthrough part of the video that I'll go through where you'll see like there's just enemies coming up, like a Curse Chest event. Enemies are coming up and they're all dying so quick that I start to forget about my bone armor, and it gets almost down to nothing. So then I just stop spamming mages for a second. They're still killing stuff, but as soon as enemies respawn, I hit the button, get my stacks back up, go back to spamming. If you can get cooldown on here, that's cool. You can go up to 10%, but as with everything else, not important. Secondary having maximum essence is kind of big, but the weapon itself doing a crap ton of damage is really going to be the most important part of this. Having secondary max essence is going to be the second most important part. Getting cooldown on it would be the last thing on that list so far. Attack speed would be nice, because if you get your attack speed up to 1.61, which I do not have, you can cast mages faster. They don't attack faster, they cast faster, break points, blah blah blah. The orange text on it only goes from 350 to 400. It's not a big range, so don't worry too much about it. It is a thing though, but don't stress it if you get a low roll, is what I mean. I went over how this spot in the cube is NEMS, but otherwise, this is going to be your spot filler for whichever of the main items that you don't have Ancient. Once you have everything, even if it sucks, as long as you have the pieces, slap some NEMS in here. I would say put NEMS over the shoulders. If the shoulders are the only thing you're missing Ancient, just put NEMS in here. Like, these really don't matter. I don't even know why I'm wearing them. But the helm was really big though, so that would be a thing too, just to keep in mind. Raylena's self-explanatory. Everyone knows max essence gives you more damage. You want as much max essence as you can, because it also, the mage itself does more based on how much essence you used on it. So this just synergizes perfectly. That's about it for the gear. Nothing too surprising with any other mage build. Diamond in the helm, in gems in the gear. Boon of the Hoarder for the gem. I really recommend getting that to level 50. You will feel the difference between it being not leveled and it being either 50 or close to 50, which we're about to talk more about in a second. And Bane of the Trapped. The 15-yard slow aura it gives you is not why you're using it, although you can utilize it once you have some gold and you're running. You say you pick up 4 or 5 piles of gold, you start the rift, you do stuff, whatever. You're already tanky enough that you can just run right up to mobs and force that radius to be triggered. But the majority of the effect of control pairing effect that you're proccing is from either you casting bone spikes, or your Land of the Dead freezing everything, or you casting bone armor to refresh it and indirectly also slowing stuff. Last thing is Enforcer, because it gives you pet damage. There's nothing to explain. It's a pet build, so you use Enforcer. So now for the skills, this kind of tails off of what I was just saying. Bone Spike, Sudden Impact. This is giving us our Crispin bonus. The damage against slowed enemies isn't really happening unless we run up to them to force trigger Bane of the Trapped. But the triple bonus against type of blah blah blah, the triple bonus is what we really want, and that's where Bone Spikes comes in. You're running around, you just recently used your bone armor, so it's on cooldown. You used your Land of the Dead at some point in the last year, so that's on cooldown. And there's an elite or a champ or just something that's not instantly dead. You just hit it with bone spikes. It will be stunned for 1 second. In that 1 second, any of your mages hits it at all. They just look at it funny, it's dead. Boom, you're done. And it's a nice little AoE too. It's not actually single target, it is a bit of an AoE. So that's cool. Also helps when you first start bounty, like right after you hit the waypoint. And you're trying to kill stuff and build up your gold or whatever. Normally you use Land of the Dead for that, say it's on cooldown. This is helping keep you alive, and it's just huge. Whenever you want something to die, hit it with bone spikes. Skill to Mage Singularity, that's the build. That's what the entire build is based around. I probably shouldn't need to go into what it does. I mean, the text really explains the whole thing. Land of the Dead Frozen Lands, this is doing multiple effects. When we use it, our Devour is constantly triggering, which is giving us not just a bunch of Essence and Life and spawning health globes for more Essence and Life, but that's also all being stacked onto that Requiem chest piece we have, which is giving us the excess over when we top off, over 3 seconds. So much is going on from that. The whole reason this skill is in the build is not to rely on it as so many necro builds that only do damage during Land of the Dead Simulacrum windows. This one is the opposite. You use this, and sure, you do a crap ton of damage while it's active, and it's proccing Crispins because everything's frozen, but you use it when you first start. You click a waypoint, start a bounty, pop land, well, dash wherever towards the objective. As soon as you see an enemy, you pop Land of the Dead, and that enemy's not moving. Everything's frozen. That lets you make sure your bone armor stacks are up. Maybe they fell off after this objective. It helps you start getting a mage at like 10 mages out because Land of Dead's busted. And then gold starts dropping because you're killing stuff, because that boon of the Hoarder gem we're using gives you gold whenever an enemy dies. So even if the enemy doesn't normally drop gold, they do anyway. So now your gold's stacking up, which is expanding your pickup radius, which ties into Devour, which we're using the Devouring Aura on. Sorry to cross over to that, but this all ties in. So now you have a bunch of gold you picked up, which, since the last time that you or your pet picks up gold, you have the 5-second window where gold wrap adds that to armor, making you pretty much invincible. You've got a bunch of mages out, you've got excess essence, your essence is full, and you have 10 mages, and your bone armor is all stacked up, and then Land of the Dead wears off. So now it's going to be on cooldown for a while, but once it wears off, you are coasting, you are good, you're flying around at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Your mages are killing stuff as you're running. The Devouring Aura radius is affected by gold pickup radius, so this thing's now huge. As you're just running around, it's grabbing globes, it's spawning globes, it's getting gold. Everything's just happening for you, and it's freaking awesome. Bone armor, we're using the stun rune for the same reason any other necro build uses the stun rune. It's proccing Crispins. It's stopping whatever we hit with it from attacking us. So if we're in some weird situation where we don't have gold from gold rep, that'll help keep us alive. You run up to enemies, hit bone armor. Now they're not attacking you, gives you a second to kill them, get the gold, and then be invincible, and then just continue steamrolling through the game. Blood Rush Metabolism. So the default is that it costs 5% health. I like metabolism because, I mean, 2 charges is very nice, especially when you're trying to speed around as fast as you can. But it also doubles the health cost to 10%, which actually means that if we're running Blood is Power as a passive, if nothing hits us or nothing makes our health bar go down at all, just casting Blood Rush 10 times total before Land of the Dead comes off of cooldown will chunk 20% of the cooldown off. We're spamming Blood Rush. That's awesome. That's huge. That actually does help a ton, and it just even further incentivizes you to be spamming Blood Rush, which, God yes, why not? Dips into the passives, overwhelming essence, more damage because of Rayla's, the weapon in the cube, mixed with just how Singularity works for the mage, where, you know, the more essence, the more it does. So that's boosting it in 2 ways, so that's pretty nice. Blood is Power we just talked about. This is really just here for getting Land of the Dead back quicker. Not that you ever need it. I find so much time when I'm doing the bounties that I have no reason to use it, and it's off of cooldown. But then at the same time, I'll randomly not need it, but I only have 2 or 4 mages up for whatever reason. I see an elite or a champ, and the mages are like trying to catch up to me. I'm just like, F it. I'll use Land of the Dead. Just continue steamrolling at incredible speeds. Final service, just use it. Don't overthink it. Don't debate. Just use it. I know that when it procs, you lose your minions anyway, so it's kind of as bad as dying, but it'll save your pools of reflection that you're getting from going away. And it's also just so annoying to die. You walk into the bounty, a fresh waypoint, and everything's on cooldown. You're doing so many bounties that you start kind of getting burnt out and not paying full attention. You do something silly, and then all of a sudden, you're dead. And you're like, wait, what happened? What hit me? Oh, geez, I wasn't paying attention. Just use Final Service so that you'll instead say, oh, wait, I procced. What's going on? Okay, let me make sure everything's stunned. Let me get some mages out. Okay, there's some gold on the screen. Let me go run over that gold and begin my snowball. Life from Death. Every mage build uses this. This pairs up with the Reaper's Wraps to just give you crazy amounts of mages. And we never run around looking for the health globes. We're just letting the pickup radius bonus from Avarice Band make that a thing that we don't need to worry about. Sorry. The one thing that is really flexible here is technically Blood is Power, because Land of the Dead isn't mandatory in any way for the build. So if you did really feel inclined to do something like Extended Servitude or Fueled by Death, then that would be the one I would say to switch. I would not say to switch Final Service. No matter what, I would not recommend this, but up to you. I would recommend sticking with these. But if you really felt so inclined, you can drop Blood as Power for something else. Typical go-tos would either be Fueled by Death or Extended Servitude. Yeah, that's it. I mean, maybe Rathmage, but that's kind of silly, because after you use Land of the Dead, everything's frozen anyway. I think that covers everything. Yeah, so now I'm going to load up some of me actually doing bounties. This way you can just see, and I'll talk through as I'm going through it. Sorry, this is probably going to be a kind of long-winded video. Hopefully you're watching it while you play Diablo 3 instead of just sinking all your time into it, but I wanted to really make sure that I go through everything, so I thought running the bounty while I commented on it is the best way to talk about all the weird little ins and outs that make it flow so smoothly. So,